right, so this chapter dealt with interpreting graphs, getting information from graphs, that sort of thing. So this first question asks you to create a bar graph for the data below and then answer the questions. So whatever the first thing in the table is, in this case here it's the color is on top, that always goes along the bottom axis. Okay, Sarah? Or the x-axis. And we need to make sure that we label our axes. So that would be where I would start. You have to label the axes. So on the bottom, we're going to have color, because that's the first thing in the table. And on the side, you'll have the number of students. So that's the first thing we always have to make sure, Sarah, is that we label the axes. Next, you have to have scales. Now, in this case here, because the color, the first thing is not a number, we wouldn't have a number on the bottom, but we would have something to show which bar is represented by which color. So I'll write R for red, I'll write B for blue, and notice I'm leaving a bit of a space here in between. G for green. The next one would be, let's go let's write black, BLA for black, and then W for white, and then O for other. So in this case, we're asked to do just a bar graph. And a bar graph and a histogram are different because with a bar graph, each bar represents only one thing, and the bars are not connected. When we look at an example for a histogram, usually the bars represent a range of things, and the bars are connected. Okay? But we also have to label or choose an axis for the number of students. The largest number we have here for the number of students is 12. So whatever scale we choose, we have to make sure that we can at least have a number 12 in there. If I count how many horizontal lines there are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can already tell that I can let each line represent one student and it'll work. I'll have room to get to 12. The other thing I'm going to do here is, just so everything's not too squished together, I'm only going to write down every second number for the number of students. So the first line represents 1 student, the next one is 2. Then 3, which I'll skip and write down 4, and so on. And that'll take me up to 12 on the left with some room to spare. And now we're going to create bars for each color corresponding to the number of students that chose that as their favorite color. For example, for red, 5 students said that was their favorite color. So we have to draw a bar that tall, 5 students. Blue was 8 students. Green was 12 students. Black, only 2. White was 3. And other was 4. Okay, so there's our bar graph. And some of these are just a little bit cockeyed, so let me fix those. That looks a little better. Okay, now to answer the questions, you can either look at the table or you can look at the graph. In most cases, it's easier to look at the graph because it's a visual representation of what's happening. For the color that's most popular, looking for the highest bar, which is the green bar. It has a height of 12, and that also can be gotten from the table, but it's usually quicker just to look at the graph real quick and see which one has the highest bar. Same thing with the least popular, which has the lowest bar, and that would be black. You can definitely use a table if you want, but the graph is probably a little quicker. For C, how many more students chose green over blue? Well, there were 12 that chose green and 8 that chose blue, so that would be a difference of 4 students. How many students were in this survey? Well, we'd have to add them all up. So look at the table, 8 and 5 is 13, plus 12 is 25, looks like 34 altogether. That's how many students were in the survey. Okay, so that's what a bar graph looks like. You have to make sure that you label your axes, choose a suitable scale, and a bar graph can be either vertical or horizontal. This bar graph is vertical, and the bars are not connected. This next one, we want to create a line graph to show the connection between the time of day and the number of people that are in a store. So again, the first thing in the table always goes along the bottom axis, which would be the time. And the second thing is the number of people, which goes along the side axes. So that's the first thing. You always have to make sure your graphs are labeled. Then we have to choose a suitable scale. So the times start at 10 a.m. and up to 6 p.m. Let's see if I have room to go up by 1 hour along the bottom. So that's 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I do. And for the number of people, I have to go up to at least 22 because that is the highest number in this table. So let's see if I go up by ones, starting at 0, can I get to 22? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. Yeah, I can. All right, I went less than halfway up to get to 11, which means I can go all the way up to 22. But like I did before, I probably would skip writing down every second line. Just so things aren't too squished together. And then because we're doing a line graph, we put a point for each piece of data. At 10 a.m., there were 2 people in the store, so I'll put 1 point at the point 10, comma 2. At 11 a.m., there were 5 people in the store. At 12 p.m., there were 10 people in the store. At 1 p.m., we're up to 22 people in the store. At 2 p.m., down to 15. At 3 p.m., down to 5. At 4 p.m., down to 4. Still 4 at 5, and at 6, down to 3. And a line graph is just a series of lines. You connect the points together with a line from one point to the next. Okay, so there's our line graph. So again, it's a visual picture of what's happening. It's pretty easy to see by looking at the graph which point is the highest, that corresponds to the highest number of people in the store, and that is at 1 o'clock. How many people are in the store when it opens? So that would be 2 at 10 a.m. And the greatest number of people in the store, again, is 22. You can get that from the table or as well the highest point on the graph. All right, so for this next part, circle graph, we need protractors. So if you need a protractor, you can come and grab one. Because we're going to do a circle graph. It says Sam recorded the hours he spent on homework during the school week. We want to create a circle graph to display the data. So the first thing we would do is we would add up the total number of hours on the left here. All done? Okay, thank you. So if we add up the total number of hours, 1.75 plus 1.25 is 3. 5.5 looks like a total of 8 hours. And so on Monday, he spent 1.75 hours on homework. 1.75 out of the total of 8 for the week. So to find the percentage, we have to go 1.75 divided by 8. And I'm going to leave that as a decimal. That is 0.21875. If you wanted to know what that was as an actual percentage, you would multiply by 100. It'd be 21.875%. But I'm going to leave it like this because my next step is to take that decimal and multiply by 360 degrees. This will tell us what portion of the circle would be dedicated to Monday's homework. 0.21875, which we already have in our calculator, and we're going to multiply that by 360 degrees. And that'll tell us how big the piece of pie is, how big of the circle would be saved for Monday's homework. 78.75, or we'll round that to 79 degrees. That's how big the piece of pie will be for Monday's homework. Now, I'm going to do all the rest of the table, and then we'll go and actually do our circle graph. For Tuesday, it was 1.25 hours out of a total of 8. So 1.25 out of 8 is 0.15625, which will then multiply by 360 degrees. And that tells us how big that angle is, approximately 56 degrees. Okay, so for the next one, 2.5 hours of homework on Wednesday, or 2.5 out of a total of 8. Gives us 0.3125. 31.25% of the week was spent on homework on Wednesday. Again, we'll take that and multiply by 360 degrees to see how big the piece of pie would be for Wednesday's homework. 112.5, or approximately 113 degrees. Thursday, 2 hours out of a total of 8. That should be 0.25 exactly, yep. Which is then multiplied by 360 degrees, which should be 90. Yep, exactly 90 degrees. And then finally on Friday, only a half hour out of an 8 total for the week. So 0.5 divided by 8, 0.0625. That's multiplied by 360 degrees to get a total of approximately 23 degrees. So now we use our protractor. And we need to draw an angle for each of these days. And so we'll start by drawing a line as our starting point. It doesn't matter where it is. And our first angle is 79 degrees. So remember how you use a protractor? You put the side of the protractor at the center of the circle. You make sure one of the zero lines, there's one on the left, one on the right, is on the beginning line, like I have. And then from 0, we're going to count up to 79 degrees, which is just below 80. So just below 80 degrees, approximately right there. So we'll move our protractor out of the way, and we'll draw a line going up to that point I put for 79 degrees. And we'll label it. Should always label our graphs. This is Monday. Then for Tuesday, we put the site at the center. And now we're going to rotate. So again, that the 0 line is on the line that we just drew. And then we need to find an angle of 56 degrees. So starting at 0, there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55, 56 is about right there. So we'll draw a line from the center towards that angle. I just want to check to make sure that I have the right one because there's 2 points there. No, I don't. It was the other point. So that's okay, we can fix that. We'll move that. Okay, and there we go. There's our 56, and this was Tuesday, so we'll label that. For Wednesday, again, put the site at the center. And we're going to rotate it so that the 0 line is on the last line that we drew. And now we want to do an angle of 113 degrees. So from 0, we'll go to 90, 100. 113 is approximately right there. So we'll draw a line from the center towards that point. And that is Wednesday's homework time. It's the biggest, has the largest angle. So again, protractor, center of the site at the center of the circle. We rotate it so that one of the 0 lines is on the line we just drew. And now we want to do an angle of 90 degrees. So that one's pretty easy to do right there. Get the protractor out of the way. And we'll draw our line. And this represents Thursday. And then all we have left is Friday, and so that's the remaining part. We don't have to measure it. You could, for sure, to make sure that it's close to 23 degrees if you want. but that is the last thing to go in our graph. So that would be taken up with whatever room is left. So again, if you wanted to, you could check to make sure that it is around 23 degrees, and it's off a little bit, but we've been rounding as we go. Some of these angles have all been rounded, so it's going to be off a little bit. As long as it's only a little bit, then that's perfectly fine. Okay? So that's how you do circle graphs. Now these next one is a histogram. And so again, I said at the beginning, the difference between a bar graph and a histogram is that with a histogram, each bar represents a range of numbers, and also the bars are connected. Whereas with a bar graph, each bar represents one thing, and the bars are not connected. So you've got what's known as raw data here. And you can see in the table, the test scores are divided up into intervals of 10 points, 40 to 50, then 50 to 60, 60 to 70, and so on. You also notice that there's some overlap here. You've got 50 in both the first and second range, and then 60 is in both the second and the third one. So if you get a score of 50, you'd put it in the first one, not the second one. That's the rule that we followed. So here we go. First number we have is 75. That goes between 70 and 80. So I'll put a tally in there. And I'll also cross it off from my list. 46 is between 40 and 50. Put a tally in there, cross it off. 94 is between 90 and 100. Put a tally in there, cross it off. And I'll just continue here. 86 is between 80 and 90. 56 is between 50 and 60, and so on. So I have two more 56s. And if you add up the tallies, that'll give you your frequencies. So if you did yours on your own, let me know if you got anything different. Did anyone get anything different? No, we're good. You guys will let me do this job for a little bit longer. I did it okay. Okay, so notice that in this case here, that we already have the scales on the axes, but they're not labeled. So we need to make sure we do that. Along the bottom, you have test scores. And along the side will be our frequency. How often it occurs. And so now we will draw our histogram. Remember, it's a series of bars and they're connected because you have this overlap for the test scores, 40 to 50, then 50 to 60. So The 40 to 50 would have a bar that is 3 units high. So there's that bar. Then 50 to 60 is 7 high. 60 to 70 is 4 high. And actually, I didn't go down far enough, so I'll fix that. I should have gone down to the very bottom. So 70, 80 is a height of 5. 80 to 90 is a height of 7. And 90 to 100 is a height of 4. Okay, so those are fixed now. So again, with the histogram, the bars are connected, and each bar represents a range of, in this case, a range of test scores. So there's the histogram. Okay, so I'll give you the assignment to work on. I'll post the answers to Google Classroom so you can check your work. Once again, remember that a week from today, Thursday, next Thursday is the last day to hand in any missed assignments. Also, remember that your final exam is at a different time than what's on the exam schedule. It's next Thursday in the afternoon from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So yeah, I would recommend that you maybe put that in your phone, in your calendar, so you don't forget. I'll keep reminding you every day, but you need to remember to be here on Thursday in the afternoon to write your final exam. As long as you need to, because remember, if you can get your mark to 75, you're exempt from the final exam, right? If you're close to 75, but you've got some missing assignments, you need to get those done and get them in. Because if you don't, your mark will go into 0, and then you may not be at your 75% you need to write the final exam. So I would recommend that you get your missing assignments in a few days before next Thursday, so that I have time to mark and get them into PowerSchool. Thank you. So you know exactly what your mark is going into the final exam. Okay. If there are any accommodation requests, meaning a reader or a quiet space, you need to let me know very soon so we can get that set up. I don't think anyone here has had any accommodations throughout the year, but if that's something you want, we can set it up. You just have to let me know and give me some notice so I can do that. So that's a conversation. Okay? Did you have a question, sir? 75.